Traders, investors, friends, family, followers, family, friends, fans, followers from around the world. What's going on? It's your boy, Jeremy Alexander Newsome with Mr. Chris Remboldt.
Hey, guys.
We have an absolutely sensational, stupendous, and serendipitously splendid webinar for you tonight. We're going to be discussing something that is a very interesting topic as of late. At least I feel that way with a lot of changes and things upcoming. Let me kind of give you just a little bit of insight onto why specifically tonight we're doing a webinar and what it's going to be about. So as most of you may know, here at Real Life Trading, we host something called Health and Wellness Month every single May. And as part of Health and Wellness Month, I wanted to bring on Chris and have him explain in a professional and phenomenal way exactly how health insurance works, what to look out for, and how we can potentially save some costs. What is really interesting about this is my girlfriend Ashley just recently is about to turn 26 years old, and so she was on her parents' insurance for a while, and so she wanted to get some ideas and some information on how insurance works, what kind of plan was right for her. And also, at an interesting time, we had a lot of entrepreneurs, other business owners, and other traders just reach out to me who might be self-employed and also ask me, hey, how do I handle my own insurance? And my insurance is through this guy. So I was like, you know what? How about we just have a webinar? I called Chris over to my lunchroom table. We sat down and we created some questions that I had. And just to my surprise, this guy sent me an amazing presentation, nice long list of questions and answers and information that I want to make sure I present to you fine folks tonight. So that's what we're going to do. If you're here live, just throw in some ones if you can hear me okay, just to make sure that the audio and everything is going through. I see August is here, Dan, Dimitri, Fabian, Frank, James, Jim, Kaz, Ken, Pat, Samantha, Steve, getting some ones. Fantastic. So let me just give you a little bit of information about Chris, who he is here live with me right now in the flesh, in person. Obviously, for those watching the recording, you can see this. And for those who are here live, he is most certainly here. So Chris has been a licensed health agent since January 2015 and has already seen several major shifts in the health insurance market. He has received awards for the volume and quality of his business and has become a highly sought after agent, friend, and husband since he recently got married. The majority of his new sales come from his existing clients referring their friends and family to him. I am one of his previous or current clients. Chris runs a team of 19 agents in Nashville, Tennessee. His team is in the top 1% rankings for teams across the country, and he's personally in the top 3% of individual agents nationally. So he is licensed in 27 states, and he joins us tonight to provide his perspective on the health insurance market. So what I'm going to do, and what I also hope some of you do, is if you have any questions about self-employment health insurance for your family, health insurance for your, I was going to say kids, but kids are family, right? Ask him. He's here to help. This is an entirely free webinar. There's not going to be any sales pitches in this webinar. We are here to enrich lives. That is our goal and mission. And beyond that, Mr. Chris Remboldt is in fact a trader. I want to give you a quick testimony. He said this verbatim when him and one of my buddies were at a sushi restaurant. We were discussing what would we do if we had $500,000 in cash given to us the next day. And Chris says that he would trade and join our trading room and trade with us every single day while doing his life insurance, his health insurance thing. I thought that was a phenomenal testimony. He trades cryptocurrencies all the time. We talk about the markets. We hang out at least once a month. So, Chris, without further ado, welcome.
Appreciate it, man.
Yeah, brother.
Great introduction.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Good to see everybody here.
Yes, everyone, again, thank you so much for your time and for being here live. I truly do appreciate it. So I guess the first question I want to dive into is, and again, I really do appreciate making this presentation. This was phenomenal. I thought we were just going to sit here and just have a general question and answer, so this is amazing. What kind of health insurance plans are out there?
Oh, great question, man. Yeah, this thing took like 10 minutes to put together. Definitely shout out to Prezi for being awesome. There's really two different markets when you are looking for a health plan. There's plans on the private market. Those you will purchase through an agent like me. You see my my dapper headshot there. Or There's also Affordable Care Act, right? Those are purchased through healthcare.gov generally.
Okay, that's what ACA stands for, Affordable Care Act?
Correct.
Okay.
ACA, Affordable Care Act. First, typical stuff about the private market here. It is typically purchased through an agent. Also, often it'll have what's known as a PPO network, which is a large network type. But there's a ton of plans on the private market. So the most important thing to look for if you're shopping private plans is that it has an out-of-pocket max. That's a cap on what you could be out of pocket on a claim. Some plans will have a policy maximum, so just understand that that's something you should check for. And if you're comfortable with $100,000, $300,000, $1 million policy max, just know that that's on some of the plans, and some of them are unlimited. So that's something to watch out for sure.
Okay.
We will circle back to out-of-pocket max here in a minute. And moving on to Affordable Care Act info, usually purchased online. Government set up a website for it that works now. It's actually good. I use it all the time. Sometimes I will recommend those plans for people.
Sure.
Depending on their situation.
Absolutely.
Most employer plans are actually Affordable Care Act based. Usually if an employer has more than 50 full-time employees, the plan that they offer is going to be Affordable Care Act accredited.
You said that's more than 50 people?
Yes, more than 50 full-time employees. The group plan will be offered, will be Affordable Care Act accredited.
Gotcha.
And they're great for anybody with pre-existing conditions. When reform was passed, that was one of the main concerns when they were writing the legislation, is that somebody with some major issues will be able to find coverage, right? I mean, imagine having a history of some major health problems and not being able to have that covered if it happens again.
Right.
It would be terrible. So that's important as well.
Okay.
So that's really the basics of the two markets. There's a few different categories within the private market. It's got a lot more variety to it than the Affordable Care Act does. You've got discount plans, short-term plans, plans that are underwritten where they'll check your health history first. There's health share ministry plans, usually affiliated with a religious organization. Those can actually be great for tax purposes, which we'll get into later.
Interesting. Okay, so you have those main two, private and the ACA. So which one then? What determines which plan a person should buy and why?
Well, there's a couple of things that you really need to be sure about when you're shopping your plan. The first one is that it fits your health situation, right?
Okay.
If you've got some issues in your health history and you're on a plan that does not cover pre-existing conditions, then that's really bad if there's a large claim for that in the future. You really don't want to be in that situation. On the flip side of that, you also don't want to have a plan that covers pre-existing conditions if you're completely healthy.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to pay for coverage that you don't actually need.
Right.
But the most important thing, by far, is that you have an out-of-pocket max on whatever plan you've got. Medical bankruptcies is huge. As I understand, it's like the leading cause of bankruptcy.
Medical issues, I would probably agree with that. I mean, that's you have to have one of those because obviously, if there's no ceiling to how much you could pay, why even have insurance?
Oh my gosh, it's scary. A couple of things that are nice to have on a plan: a good provider network. So PPO is a large network type. If you go with an HMO or EPO type plan, which make sure that your providers are in those networks so you don't have to switch doctors. And it's also nice if your plan does something before you hit a deductible too. I would certainly recommend looking for coverage that if you have something small happen, it will help you. But those things are just things that are nice to have. They're creature features.
Sure.
So it's good to have those on there for sure.
Okay, so let me just break this down really quick. What does PPO stand for? HMO, what does that stand for?
A PPO is a preferred provider organization.
Okay.
When you are a member of a PPO, one of the best things about it is that it's usually national.
Right.
So it doesn't matter if you cross state lines.
Okay.
Another cool thing with PPOs is you will get what's known as a provider discount, even pre-deductible. So say you go in for an office visit and it costs, I don't know, a few $100. Often that gets cut in half just because you're a member of a PPO. You get the provider discount. HMO, Health Maintenance Organization, they are focused on generally preventive preventive health care, which is great. You'll catch things before they happen on there. Usually HMOs will be Affordable Care Act plans. I don't know of too many private plans that are HMOs, but they will have a smaller provider network, and that brings the cost down for those sometimes too. So network size definitely does play into premium cost sometimes.
Okay. And
not every time, but sometimes.
You mentioned one other one, EMO?
EPO? Exclusive Provider Organization.
Okay. So which one do you prefer out of those three?
Well, for me, I like a PPO.
Okay.
It's a large network type for sure, but there's positives about all of those network types for sure.
Gotcha. Okay, well, so here's a personal question then. So last year, which was what 2017, I did talk to my CPA a lot more than normal, and I was kind of going through and looking at my own taxes and looking over everything, and I saw that there was a place that was like a deduction for health insurance.
Right.
So what is the tax penalties and or exemptions? What's up with the health insurance penalty, if you will?
Sure. One thing that I would like to preface this with, we are not CPAs. We are not giving tax advice here. Any decision you make should be informed by somebody who is licensed to talk about taxes. This is just based on publicly available information, what I've got here. So that penalty is it's typically called, it's known as a shared responsibility payment.
Okay.
It is how you participate in the overall Affordable Care Act without being part of the Affordable Care Act. So as I understand it, part of the plans that when you're on the Affordable Care Act, they contribute to this as well, but it's, I believe, it is a way that they ensure that everybody participates in making sure everybody in America has health coverage. That was the idea behind it.
That was the goal. Right.
What it looks like to us is an additional line on our tax, right? So there are a few different reasons that you would not have to pay that penalty, as I understand it. First, have an Affordable Care Act compliant plan. That checks the box. You submit your paperwork from your insurance company that they send you, and the IRS will say, cool, looks like you had qualifying coverage.
Right.
Then, if you do not have an Affordable Care Act plan, if you have something from the private market, there are a couple of different exemptions that are common as well. The most common one, and you see this a lot with families, is that it costs more than a certain percentage of your household income to buy an Affordable Care Act plan. And if you just go to Google and type in something along the lines of IRS health insurance penalty exemptions, this page will pop up. It's on their website. But essentially, if it costs more than, I think it's around 8% of your household income to buy a bronze plan, which is true for almost every family out there, at least in my experience, then that's an exemption that you file with your taxes. The box you check in there, I have a bunch of clients that do that actually, I believe. At least that's what they tell me. Then there's something known as a health share ministry plan that I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
That is an exemption all its own as well. There are some places you can go to Google that as well, like Health Share Ministry Affordable Care Act exemption. That will pull up a few different great places to look on that. Those plans are usually really cheap. You probably wouldn't want to use them as your main coverage, but they check that box. So for higher income people, which I'm sure there's a lot of people that would qualify for that category on this call, that's a good option for you. You have to have qualifying coverage for 9 months out of the year. And that can be one of those ministry plans, as I understand it, based on my research. Again, check with your CPA. Make sure everything's all correct before you set anything in stone. But that's all the research I've done, because that's a common question I get as well. Also, 2019 and beyond, when they passed the tax reform for that they just passed through, the Republicans just passed. There was a provision in there that, as I understand it, zeroed out the shared responsibility payment. As I understand it, it did not completely remove it, but it said the penalty is going to be $0 from tax year 2019 and beyond.
Right.
So yeah, they didn't remove it. They didn't change the law. All they said was it's now $0, which is an interesting approach. So 2019 and beyond, you really don't have to worry about this penalty based on my research. Again, do your own research here. I'm not a tax expert by any means, but that looks like good news for people that are covered by private plans and perhaps want to shop them as well.
Gotcha. Okay, so that's kind of what you see for 2019, more or less, is that's just, that penalty is going to be gone, it's going to be eradicated, it won't really be an issue. A lot of people will probably be doing more private insurance rather than the ACA insurance. Is that kind of what you're saying?
That's my prediction.
Okay.
I don't know that that's what will happen, but that is certainly my guess. That has been one of the main concerns for especially high-income clients, is making sure that they are going to be exempt from that kind of penalty.
Yeah.
So it'll definitely make a lot of people a lot more comfortable.
Gotcha. Okay. So another question I had, this falls into the trading category, day trading, people that might be just really free and travel as much as they want. So I had a buddy named Josh who was in Italy like 2 years ago, had a bad stomach ulcer in Italy and just passed out like on one of those, what are those boats called when they're going down the canal? It was in Venice, a gondola, yes. And so he passed out, horrible pain. They had to rush him to the hospital.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so he almost bled out and died. It's like, yeah, it's crazy. So if I'm traveling international, let's say I'm in Aruba or Iceland or Paris or wherever, how does the health insurance coverage cover me if I'm in another country, especially if they have national health care, let's say?
That is a very, very good reason to have an agent, right?
Okay.
Probably don't want to get too much into product specifics or company specifics here, but there are some things known as international coverage as well as repatriation benefits.
Okay.
That can be part of your health plan. Often, though, you will buy something known as travel insurance to cover medical events that happen while you are overseas in particular.
Sure.
When you're traveling domestically, you'll be fine as long as you have a national PPO plan. If you're, I don't know, going out to Colorado to go skiing, as long as you've got a plan that's got a network out there, you're good. So these are just something you'd want to talk to your agent about, make sure that your needs are getting their boxes checked, right?
Right.
Everybody's going to have different needs. Some people will literally never leave the country, so that doesn't matter to them. And some people do a ton of international travel. So just make sure that you talk to your agent about this.
That's right.
And we'll look at the details on it.
Okay, gotcha. So I have a question from one of the people, one of the attendees who are here live. So Ken says, I turned 65 in October. My window for initially signing up for Medicare opens in July. Are these kind of plans what I would be enrolling in for Medicare?
Medicare and health insurance are weirdly totally different universes.
Really?
It does not make sense to me. So people that do health insurance like never do Medicare.
Okay.
And people that do Medicare
never do health insurance.
Even though they're the same thing. The only real difference is a dividing line of age. For Medicare, I would recommend getting a good agent. I know of a few locally, and I know of a few that can get you in touch with somebody in other states as well. I've had to do that for several of my clients as they age out of the health insurance market. There are government parts of Medicare as well as private parts of Medicare. So you'll want to be sure that you're choosing a good supplement. That's what it's known as. It's a supplement. There's different Medicare parts. It's like Part B, C, and D that cover different kinds of things that you can get different supplements to attach to your base Medicare plan. So definitely get somebody that understands it. I only have a very cursory understanding of Medicare, and I'd be happy to help find an agent for that too.
That is interesting. I did not know that they were that vastly different, but that's... I've never looked into Medicare. So, Ken, I had no idea you're 65, man. You look good for 65, brother. You are in shape. Keep it up, my man. Keep it up. All right, well, here's just another quick question is, what are some open-ended free resource questions for someone like Ken or anyone who has just general questions? Where would be other than Google, obviously, what
Sure.
would be a useful avenue for people to look at something, save money on things, have that as a resource or a tool?
Right. So there's a few websites that I use. Let me pull them up on the screen here, actually.
Okay.
Exit full screen here. Let's go to the first one, lowestmed.com. So if somebody has prescriptions, one thing that a lot of people don't know is that you get prescribed an antibiotic, it's going to be one price at one place and something totally different somewhere else for literally the same thing. So let's take, for example, a sinus infection. You'll get prescribed probably a Z-Pak. The generic for that is known as azithromycin.
Oh,
I know.
oh, nice.
They have all these weird words, man. You do this for a while, you start being able to memorize medications.
I would never have been able to spell azithromycin in my life.
So let's look in my home zip code here in Mount Juliet, Tennessee for azithromycin and see what we get back.
Okay.
So when your doctor's going to make you a prescription, they're like, where do you want us to send it? What pharmacy? Looks like Kroger is $9.50. Kmart, it's $30. So that's a 3x difference.
Wow.
And this is a pretty inexpensive prescription, too.
Right. That is, wow.
You start getting into something a little more complex or heavy hitting, it will make an even bigger difference.
Let's look at something complex and heavy hitting. What would that be? What's an example? Anyone have any guesses? Anyone want to throw anything in the chat pane?
Let's see what we get with. A lot of my younger clients take Adderall. Let's see what comes back with that.
Adderall.
I know.
Pulling it up.
I know.
Legal speed, bro.
$22 at Walmart, $35 at Kmart. Kmart's just gouging us here.
They need to make money somehow. They're going to go bankrupt.
I don't know. I don't know what the difference is. Sometimes they're the cheapest option. So
really?
It's really random.
Huh.
So if you get prescribed something, here's a good one. Let's look at a Pro Air inhaler. That's for asthma, right? So Pro Air, I believe it's the HFA. Let's see what loads up here. This is a good example of when you would want to...
I mean, that is a massive difference.
Yeah, $8 to $21. But let's go to the brand name, right? I mean, the brand's going to be ridiculous here. So talk to your doctor. Talk to your doctor about the difference between brand and generic. If you get a prescription, often it's better to go with generic price-wise.
Yeah.
Another good one is Planet Drugs Direct. Planet Drugs Direct is a Canadian pharmacy, and up there in Canada, they have prices that are just basically pennies on the dollar compared to the USA.
Yeah.
So as long as it's not a controlled substance, they'll ship it to you, usually in a 3-month supply. So let's look at a common prescription for blood pressure meds here. If I can type. Lisinopril. That's a very common one. Let's see what we can get that for. So you can get 3 months supply for $15 here on the Planet Drugs Direct. I have a few clients that use this. I've never used it myself, but the way it works is you'll scan your script from your doctor over to them, and they will send you a supply of it. Oh,
so when you add it to cart, you have to upload the prescription. Okay, that makes sense.
It's pretty easy to use, though, at least based on what my clients tell me. I haven't used it because I don't have any maintenance meds right now. Fingers crossed, knock on wood, thank goodness.
That's right. Catherine asked about Advair.
Advair, that's a very good one. I've looked this one up many times. I'm glad you thought of that, Advair. So there's the discus and the inhaler. We'll look at both of them. The discus, you can get a 3-month supply for about $191 on the brand, or you can go generic and get 3 months for $85. Let's go ahead and look at the other one, the inhaler. So, good grief. Look at that. 360 doses for $636. The generic equivalent is $75.
Well, I know you're not a doctor. I mean, I'd love to ask the doctor, like, what is really the massive difference between that? Like, is it really performance? Like, can you? I mean, is it going to save your life one versus the other, or is it just a brand?
Exactly. So that's something to talk to your doc about.
Yeah.
From what I understand, there's not too much difference, but don't take my advice. I'm not a doctor. Not a doctor.
I hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so let's see what the other site that I was going to pull up was. This one's so important. This is called healthcarebluebook.com. Healthcare Blue Book is going to give you an estimated cost for medical procedures.
Whoa.
Isn't that mind-blowing?
Yeah.
I mean, you're like, I don't know what appendicitis is going to cost.
No idea.
I don't know what, surgeries, procedures, scans, imaging,
take the tonsils out.
all that stuff, right? So knowing in advance what that should cost really helps if you're going to have this kind of thing done. So tonsil's a good one, tonsillectomy. Let's look up what that should cost.
Now, what's interesting here is while you're looking this up, I'm going to just make this note. One of, if not many of the reasons why I wanted you to make this presentation for the traders that I know and the people that I work with, my clients and my friends and family, is very simply that the massive amount of money that people could be saving on the proper health insurance.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
And you were mentioning this to me, and you kind of staggered me with some numbers. Kind of go through what you were thinking in that procedure and why you wanted to do this presentation. This is what really pushed me over the edge.
Oh my gosh, man. So I talk to so many people that are overpaying for their health coverage. It's the case more often than not that they're paying too much for it based on their situation. It's not always true. Sometimes what you got is a good deal. And if that's the case, I'm going to tell you that wow, you got a great plan. You should keep it.
Yeah.
Let's just pull up the calculator here and see what kind of money we're talking about. Usually, I have saved clients at least in the past couple years, somewhere between, depending on the number of people, of course, somewhere between $2,000 and over $10,000 annually.
So you say the number of people, like the number of people in their family?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
wow, $10,000 annually in health insurance.
I saved one family like $20,000.
What?
Yeah, it was ridiculous. But let's say we save somebody an average of, I don't know, $4,000, and I'm, I don't know, able to help. Give me a number.
140 people.
140 people. All right, times 140. So that's $560,000 that was otherwise being vented off into space.
Yeah.
Going out of the economy, doing literally nothing for anybody. That's over $500,000 back into everybody's lives. In the 3 years that I've been doing this, I have not done the numbers on this, but I'm sure it's over $1 million I've saved people.
Which is incredible, because I just like the way you said that. Put that back into the economy, right? Having good health insurance that is either equivalent, hopefully better than what someone already has, and for cheaper is a no-brainer, in my opinion.
And that's possible in many cases. In some you need to keep what you got.
Yeah, absolutely. So, but you should at least check it out.
Yeah, right.
Okay, sorry. Cause I was just interested in this because the Healthcare Blue Book. I mean, it really.
Look at this range, guys.
It's incredible. Yeah.
So some places will charge over $9,000 for a tonsillectomy. Some will charge as little as $1,700. So they're giving a fair price in Middle Tennessee of $3,600 for that. And look at this. They will rank facilities here at or below fair price.
Whoa.
Look at that.
Cool.
So you can know where to go now and what to expect to hit your insurance. So
interesting.
That's a very, very useful resource. I have used it a few times and found that clients were being ripped off. And believe me, we went on to question some of that. So,
Gotcha. Okay. Very cool. So there's another question live. I don't know if you can handle this one. If it's too far past you, let me know. But Catherine asked, what is the difference between Medicare and Medicaid?
Medicare is...
I have no idea either.
That's a great question. It took me a while to figure this out, too.
I have no clue.
Man, I was totally clueless for like the first 3 months after I got my license. It was...
Learn tons.
Yeah. Medicare is after age 65.
Okay.
That's the name of the plan types after it. Medicaid is federal assistance for low-income individuals, families, and children. So very similar words, totally different programs.
Gotcha. And that's the government's definition on low income, I would assume. Like they have
they do have defined standards for it based on federal poverty level.
Gotcha. Okay. Interesting. That makes sense. So overall, then, why the need to have an insurance agent? Because with all the resources available, I feel like I should just be able to go onto a website, scroll through some things, put in some numbers, plug in some numbers, and just buy my own health insurance. What is the point of having an agent?
Well, I would say that probably one of the most important reasons to work with an agent is that a good agent will make sure you have a good plan for your needs. Everybody's different, right? There's not a cookie cutter human that will be a cookie cutter fit for a plan. Everybody's totally different. Like, for example, international travel. If you needed something for international travel, your needs are different from somebody who doesn't. Somebody that's got a history of heart problems or cancer, they need to have that covered. They can't be on a plan that will limit that. That's a nightmare. Somebody that's totally healthy, they probably don't need a plan that covers something already in place.
Right.
That's the main reason. Also, it's harder and harder to get customer service these days, so some actual customer support from actual human is great.
Which you are good at. I'll give you that. Yeah, you're really good at customer service.
Appreciate that, man.
You follow up on every text message I've ever sent you within hours or minutes. So
especially if it's a meme, right?
Yeah. If it's a joke of some kind, it's even faster.
Yep. Another reason we can give important guidance during claims, like knowing that you should get an itemized bill on a large charge, knowing that you can find out what the fair price for things are, knowing that there is sometimes a way to negotiate bills instead of just pay what's on the sticker, and sometimes hospitals will miscode things or insurance companies will miscode things, and they'll say something isn't covered or isn't covered the right way when it was actually just a human error. That's very common. An agent will spot that like that. Most of the time that stuff goes unnoticed. Gotcha.
And again, guys, for those who are here live, and obviously if you're watching the recording as well, you can post in the YouTube comments below if you have a question, and I'll send it to Chris. Chris will get back to me. He subscribed to my YouTube channel, so he'll probably see it. And again, for those who are live, feel free to ask a question as well, because I really want to make sure, the title of the webinar was how to optimize your health insurance. So I'm going to start digging in some really intense questions on optimization, what it looks like. Just off the ball question, whatever that means. Give me an average. So let's say out of 10 people, how many people would you say that if they come to you have a good enough health insurance where you go, hey man, your health insurance is fine. You don't need anything I offer. Keep doing what you're doing.
Probably 3 to 4 out of 10.
Okay.
Yeah.
3, 4 out of 10. So the other 6 or 7, there's something. How many would you say is egregiously overpaying?
Probably about the same.
3 to 4 out of 10.
3 to 4 out of 10 is way overpaying.
Right.
3 to 4 out of 10 are really in the best place they can be, and the ones in the middle, they can still definitely be helped.
Sure. And it just might be small amounts.
Right. It's about optimizing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
About getting the best possible fit.
Get that money back so you can trade it.
Yes.
Yeah. I love it. Okay. So in that same exact realm, then, if you were talking to, let's just say a family versus, did you get more families? Do you get more single, independent people? What's your demographic of people that come to you the most? Like age, all that good stuff.
I've got clients that are like 18 years old all the way up to early 60s. I would say, though, that people know people like them. So if I help out a family and I end up helping them save a lot of money, I'm going to hear from the families that they know that complain about the same issue, right? They're going to call me. Same goes for a kid that's in college and their school requires that they have a health plan. Their friends have the same problem. So it's just basically, there's different kinds of problems out there, and they always generate phone calls when I'm able to help somebody with it.
Yeah, totally. No, that makes sense. What do you see people looking for more often? Cost savings or just simply better insurance? Like, do people come to you a lot of times saying, man, I went to the doctor and I just got absolutely screwed over. I need you to look at this for me. Or do you have people who are like, hey dude, I have no idea how much I'm paying. Can you just look over can you look over someone's current policy?
Oh yeah. If they send me the documents, I can look over it and
really
have a good idea of it.
Okay.
But I've kind of gotten pretty good at knowing what's in certain kinds of employer plans, certain kinds of marketplace plans, and certain kinds of private plans. So if somebody can tell me a few details about it, I can usually fill in the rest and ask questions to find out what I miss. But I don't know. What was the rest of the question?
Just more or less saying, do they come to you for...
Right, for benefits versus cost.
Yeah.
I'd say it's about half and half. The ones that... It's been lately a lot about cost.
Yeah.
There have been rate increases on several different kinds of plans, and that always generates phone calls when those pieces of mail go out. Rate increases, I don't know why. There's just been a lot of them lately. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, but usually I would say that, but often it's benefits too. Often it's somebody finds out they have a larger deductible than they thought they did or something like that.
Okay. Now I'm going to ask you a stinger. Here's a stinger. Because so my number one concern, I think most people's number one concern, if they're going to have health insurance, would be if I do file a claim, what stops an insurance company or a health insurance company from going, no, I don't want to pay this claim. This is, we're not going to pay any of this. You're on your own.
Well, that's a great question. You've got to know not just the benefits on your plan, but the limitations. An average agent will tell you the benefits of a plan, right? Because they want to make a sale.
Sure.
A good agent will tell you, okay, so this covers this, and like anything else out there, it's got limitations. Here's what they are. And there are ways to cover the limitations on most plans. You can get applicable supplements for it. Sometimes some things are actually covered by insurance companies other than health insurance companies. Like, for example, some of my Texas clients do a lot of rodeo. Health insurance will usually define rodeo as unnecessarily high-risk activity and will not cover you if you get hurt doing it. So for them, there will be other insurance products that my property and casualty friends will usually have access to.
Sure.
Insurance for occupational hazards such as rodeo. That's just an example. But the moral of the story being, don't find out that your insurance company doesn't cover a claim. You need to know the limitations
way beforehand.
Now.
Yeah. So
Exactly.
at least figure that out, right?
Yep.
Contact an agent and just at least figure out what your limitations are. Then like the one you mentioned, the big one is just your max out of pocket.
Oh yeah.
Like, you need to know that off the top of your head.
Yep.
Like my max out of pocket is $4,000. Right. So I mean, it's like that's a number that you need to know, because if you do not know that number, that's scary, man. I mean, from a trader, I'm all about risk and capital preservation. So if I could lose my entire trading account because of some stupid medical bill, that would be horrendous.
It'd be pretty rough for sure. Definitely read the fine print of the brochure or coverage outline for your plan. That'll be pretty illuminating, and it'll be both comforting and alarming, because you'll find things that you didn't know were covered.
Yeah.
And you'll find things that you didn't know were not covered. It's pretty interesting to read through that fine print.
How long does a session of that normally take?
Until you fall asleep. No, you can skim through it usually in about 5 to 10 minutes.
Okay.
It's worth the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And how long would it take for someone speaking with you, working with you, or working with another health insurance agent? How long would that take for someone to go through their current policy and any other potential policies to see if they have maximized their health insurance?
Well, a good deep dive exploration into whether your coverage is optimized usually takes about 45 minutes to an hour. It's not too bad.
Yeah.
At least that's about how long I spend on it.
Okay.
I know some agents that take shorter and some that take longer. And if I trained them, they're going through all the right stuff anyway. So it's definitely worth the time.
Okay.
For sure.
Now, if you do file a claim, I said there are limitations. You mentioned the limitations. Do your rates automatically go up if you have a tonsillectomy and it's covered, and that's covered under your plan? You file it. Do your rates automatically go up because of that?
It really depends on the plan type. Most plans, it does not change your rate at all if you file a claim.
Really?
Right. I mean, especially think about a tonsillectomy. Can you have more than one of those? No, you can't. Some things you can have more than one of, though.
Yeah.
And if you're on a plan type that's going to have a variable rate based on claims, that's kind of not cool. So,
but you can't have those.
Those, as far as I know, still exist.
Really?
I haven't seen any for a while, but not everything's been sunsetted off of the market. So I can't say for sure they're all gone. Most of the plan types that I know of don't adjust premium based on claims history.
Okay.
That'd be pretty uncool.
Okay, interesting. Man, I have so many questions right now. And again, if you guys have questions, let me know. I'm just trying to learn as much as I can from an expert in this field. And again, Frank Doyle or Dimitri, your favorite, if you guys have any questions, just type them in, let me know. What is, now again, if this is too personal, just let me know, but what is something that you see as or as an egregious thing that other health agents or insurance agents will do? Like something you go, they shouldn't be doing that. That's in your field, something that you frown upon. Because I have plenty of things in my marketing, like in the marketing field, I can talk about. So, are there any things that you look down on other agents that are doing? We're not going to name names, obviously, but
sure. Well, every agent usually will work to their highest level of ethics and experience, but there are some out there once in a while that just are not great. Luckily, it's pretty unusual, but what you should watch out for is...
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. What to watch out for?
What you should watch out for is somebody not telling you about the limitations of a plan.
Okay.
Somebody not mentioning that some plans, like if they're showing you a plan that could leave you possibly liable for the shared responsibility payment tax, if they don't mention that, that's not cool. Also, you just want to make sure that your plan is built to help you. There's ways to build plans that are great for generating commission for the agent, but don't really do that much more for the client. And that's not what you want to have, obviously. You want to have an optimized health plan. You don't want to have something that's paying the agent a bunch of commission.
But I mean, it's kind of scary, though, to approach an agent because you don't never know what question to ask. So what would be 2 questions that you would tell every single person to ask a health insurance agent, even if it's their current agent or if they're shopping for a new one?
Sure. So definitely find out whatever they recommend, what the out-of-pocket max is on it. And if they're offering something that doesn't have an out-of-pocket max and they were not forthcoming with that information, I would probably rethink working with them. Probably another good question would be, tell me about the market, what's out there in general. Because there's sometimes a training gap with agents or a research gap where they don't learn about other plan types other than just what their company offers, right?
Sure.
You need to know what everything is out there. So you can make sure you give a good recommendation so that when you get to the client that does have a plan that's good for them, you can say, you know what, you're actually really good on this. I would probably keep it. Or if you get to somebody that needs a certain kind of coverage that you can't offer, you don't try to shoehorn them into a plan that kind of fits them but doesn't.
So if I'm asking too many dumb questions, I apologize.
No problem. There's no dumb questions. Again, this took me forever to learn about.
Are there health insurance companies that, you mentioned this just a second ago, that only pitch one product or one company? And if so, do you suggest going with someone that can look through multiple different companies? Does that make sense?
Well, there's nothing wrong with having an agent that can only write one company's policies, as long as they're well versed in what the rest of the market looks like and will make the right recommendations on it. So again, the questions, what's the market like and what does the policy you're recommending have for an out-of-pocket max? Very important questions. You should look for somebody that you can trust more than anything else. That is hard to find and sometimes it's hard to identify, but usually we're pretty good at judging whether somebody is going to be somebody they would trust or not, right? It's all in the vibe that they give off.
Gotcha. Now here's a question. Oh boy, that's a good one. What health insurance plan do you have?
I'm not supposed to talk about plans or companies,
unfortunately. Shoot.
Yeah.
I was trying to trick him, guys. But I mean, you have what I have. Am I allowed to say it? Probably not. Okay.
Let's not talk about companies and products because not everything's offered in every state.
That's
not
true.
Everybody will qualify for every plan. So
that's true.
I'd like to just make sure it's mostly general information.
Absolutely. Makes sense. Well, I think the questions might have died off. Do you have any direct contact info? How do people get in contact with you if they want I guess what I should say is what exactly are you offering? Or can people actually reach out to you and say, hey, dude, just let me go through, you did the webinar, go through my entire policy and tell me if I'm paying too much or too little, or can they do that?
Absolutely. Probably would be best if you're located in a state that I'm licensed in, but if you're not, that's okay. Go ahead and contact me and I'll direct you to whatever resource is best for you.
Okay.
I'm licensed in 27 states, so just over half of the USA. Please feel free to reach out to me on my cell phone. There's my social media page. You can shoot me a message on there as well. And that's my email as well. So I'd be happy to help anybody that has any questions. I'm not here to sell plans. I'm here to help people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's one of the things that I appreciate about you, man. I mean, so
Right.
if you guys do at least want to gain more information and see, just berate someone that is truly, genuinely nice, he'll need your zip code of primary residence, date of birth for everyone that you're covering, any pre-existing health issues, obviously, any info in your current plan you can be sending him. So that's so your cell phone. You can call him or text him.
Probably text.
Yeah, I love the fact that people can text you, because I also have my cell phone number out there on the whole internet for people to text me, and people do. So yeah, feel free to contact Chris that way. And again, if anyone here live has a last minute question, just simply let me know. Do you have any questions for me, by any chance?
Is it Laurel or Yanny?
Man, the funny thing is, I heard about that like yesterday. Ashley was telling me about that. And,
You mean you heard about Yanny yesterday?
Yeah, she was mentioning about it. It's I think it's so dumb. Like it's very similar to the black and gold, blue or
Oh, it's totally more trippy than that.
the dress. Yeah, it's trippy. But
It's almost like people live in different universes that hear it differently.
so what'd you hear?
I hear Yanny. That's
Yeah.
what it is. I'm just kidding, folks. I have some good friends and family that think it's Laurel. And I
Okay.
still love them.
Okay. Well, I will say this. I have not listened to it. I have only heard it. I've heard people talking about it. I have not listened to it to see what I hear.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to get back to you on that tonight, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right after the webinar's over, I'm going to do that.
People watch this a week from now and are like, that's such old news.
August. This is a really good question, and I will say I've thought about this. I'm gonna let you go down this rabbit hole with me, Chris. So August says, how about a real life trading group plan?
That's a great question.
So what if, so let's say I have a company and I teach people from all across the world about how the stock market works, and I do it for free. How would I create a group plan? Or is that even possible? Do they have to be employees of my company? And if they're employees, to what extent? Can they all be 1099s and still get that? Or how does that work?
This sort of adventure is something that I would start to look for in 2019 and 2020. I would think that insurance law will begin to see a little bit of reform. But as it stands right now, to create a group, generally you have to have them as a full-time employee.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the individual plans out there on the private market are grouped too, but they're grouped by like overall associations.
Mm-hmm.
So they generally don't cross state lines, and the ones that are employer plans are limited to people that are members of that same employer. I would think that this is something that will be innovated for in the next probably 2 to 5 year range.
Okay.
So as soon as that's got some interesting news in that category,
Sure.
and I'm always looking at this stuff too.
Sure.
Google knows me very well, my habits for reading news, so it'll bring it to my attention, and I'll be researching it too. But right now, no, there's nothing like that. But I would think it would be really cool for that to begin to exist.
Okay. Interesting. As far as stock questions, I mean, you're a trader, I'm a trader. Are you allowed to tell me, no, probably not allowed to tell me, but are there companies out there on the health spectrum that you would feel comfortable investing in? Are they hospitals, or are there any companies that you use that are publicly traded? Like, I know Prime America is publicly traded. I don't think they do what you do. They do more like life insurance, retirement planning. Is there anything in your spectrum that's publicly traded, I guess should be my question.
Honestly, I don't necessarily have enough of a optimistic outlook on some of the publicly traded companies, but that's just such a volatile part of the market, I think, because I believe there's some reform coming soon, and I think that could cause prices to go one way or the other pretty dramatically.
Yeah.
I have no idea, to be honest.
Sure, that's fair. That's okay.
I limit my interest to nerdy stuff like alternative energy. Of course, I'm a big fan of Tesla as well.
Yep.
And anything in kind of the market of innovating energy sources and transportation. That's my cup of tea.
That's your go-to.
And of course, cryptocurrency.
Yeah, of course. Obviously. Well, that was super informative. For those who are here live, thank you so much for being here live. For those on the recording, thank you so much working with Chris Remboldt and myself here in the flesh, in person. And for those who are here live, again, thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute honor and a privilege. If you have any questions, YouTube land, feel free to email, message, text Chris or myself. If it's about health insurance or about the stock market or what books to read or how to take that mindset to the next level, how to become an entrepreneur like this guy who owns his own agency, who's just an absolute killer and does so many phenomenal things for so many people. That's what it's all about, ladies and gentlemen. It's all about enriching lives, and I appreciate you all being here today. Thank you so much, and until next time, love life, live life, and trade it. We will see you all later. Goodbye.
Peace, guys. Read books.
Chugga, 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 chugga.